you ready? I know I am. Are you ready for your daily dose? Your daily dose of radio rehab, because we need them. We need strategies. We need strategies for living.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Well,
and I think they're ready.
I know I am.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And if they're not, they've got a few seconds.
Ready or not, here we come, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, folks, welcome. Welcome into 101.7 FM and 710 Keel. Welcome into another edition of Strategies for Living. I'm Dr. David McMillan, and she is psychotherapist, PLPC, Leon McMillan. And we're glad you're tuned into Strategies for Living with us. So, Lauren, you were recently visiting with a colleague.
I was.
A fellow counselor, if you will. And you were in a conversation that I think kind of, when you came home and shared it with me, it kind of surprised you. Would that be a fair assessment of the conversation?
It did. It was one of those kind of made me cock my head to the side a little bit and just, I hadn't even... That's interesting, right?
Yeah.
So I was talking with the therapist colleague, and they were telling me about some other therapists that they knew how they were using some therapy techniques at home with their children, right?
Okay, that's good, yeah.
I thought so. And in this therapist's opinion, though, it was a little overboard.
Okay.
Yeah, they thought that, no, that's just too much work. That's just not kosher. It's just too much effort to try to infuse therapy techniques at home.
Yeah, I remember that's what you came home and told me, and it kind of surprised me because,
I mean, I don't know. To me, that's kind of why I got into it in the first place, this avenue of work.
What you passed on to me, what I remember is you kind of said that the idea you got from this colleague is, when I'm off the clock, I'm off the clock, and I don't want to have to deal with all that therapy stuff at home.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that kind of strikes me as strange also. So what we got to thinking here as we talked about it is, well, what do you do for a living?
Right.
So what do we do? What do we really do for a living?
And where is the balance? Where are the lines, if there are any?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we do talk about work-life balance. That's a very valid thing to think about and consider.
And so what does all that mean? And where's the line? Where do we draw the lines? Do we live to work, or do we work to live?
Right.
I think there's a lot we can talk about with this, because I think it's not just a thing with I think this is a thing with everybody.
If you work and you live, it's a thing.
Absolutely. And so we're going to talk about it today here on Strategies for Living. What do you do for a living? Well, we'll see. We'll see where this conversation goes. Folks, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Strategies for a Living. We appreciate you being with us, and we appreciate our sponsors making it possible. The Robinson Film Center, Azalea Cleaners, Pintail Roofing, Learning RX, Empress Cannabis with Love, and the Shreveport Little Theater. Back in a moment. What do you do for a living? That's this evening here on Strategies. It's been going on for 101 years now. I'm talking about the Shreveport Little Theater. Been enriching our lives through the performing arts and education and opportunities to volunteer service guided by professional artists. They've been at it a long time. And up next, beautiful, the Carole King musical is the summer musical this year. And have you seen the 24-25 season? My goodness. Neil Simon's Brighton Beach memoirs, Steel Magnolias, It's a Wonderful Life, Doubt, I Love You, You're Perfect Now, Change, and then May We All, a new country musical. You need to get your season tickets right now. ShreveportLittleTheater.com. It is American theater at its best at 812 Margaret Place in Shreveport. Shreveport Little Theater. ShreveportLittleTheater.com. And welcome in Welcome into 101.7 FM, 710 Keel. Welcome into Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillan, David McMillan. And what do you do for a living? You know, a lot of times we talk about that, you know, that work-life balance. The conversation that you came home and related to me, Lauren, the first thing that I thought about is the person that was sharing this. I wonder if they're coming from a place of, all I do is work. You know,
Right.
All I do is work all the time, and there's no, you know, we talk about work-life balance, right?
Yes.
And you know, I'm not sure that any of us know exactly what that is,
Right.
Right?
No, absolutely.
Or how we get there. But I think it's important for us to have conversations like this about it.
I think so, yeah, because so many of us we had very differing models of what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some of us grew up with very workaholic, right? Like if you weren't working, you were lazy. That ideology, right?
I mean, I both of my folks worked, and my father worked. You know, I've said this before. I grew up in a grocery store,
right?
And it's extremely long hours. You know, I mean, you're there from, from the doors opening to the doors closing. If you're a responsible manager or in management, and that can wear on you. You know,
Yeah.
And so I wonder if, you know, the person that you were talking to has a real sense of work-life balance. Recently I saw a study that said that more than 60% of people in the United States, 60% of United States employees feel like their work-life balance is completely out of whack.
Yeah.
You know? And
I would wonder how much, I would think to some degree maybe COVID helped, but I wonder to what degree that also hurt. And what I mean by that is a lot of people shifted to the work at home, right, during COVID.
Yeah.
And so then, to me, that could actually really blur the lines even more because then you're working at home and it's the same space.
Well, yeah, it reminds me, I grew up with my friends Tommy and Mickey, whose family ran Peter's Grocery in Bossier. I never could get away from the grocery store, right?
Yeah.
You know, my father was there, and then my two good friends, their family was in the Peter's Grocery, and unfortunately, it's closed now. But I had many fond memories of running around. But one of the things that two families, ran the store, the Peters and the Capianas. It was a unique setting because brother and sister married brother and sister. So Tommy and Mickey were double first cousins.
Typical
right?
Italians, yes. I understand.
But my point here is it was, they lived in the store.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't live in the store.
No, but
they
it was
lived
right next door.
Right behind.
Yeah.
They had Mickey and Tommy, their families had houses literally out the back door of the store, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's the concept. It wasn't living over the store, but almost.
Right.
Right? So it's like, okay, well, can you ever get away? Well, no.
No.
So, but I don't remember any of Mickey and Tommy's family, moms and dads and the other adults that worked in the store. I don't remember, it seemed like they had a way to make it all work, I don't remember anybody getting real stressed out or, in fact, it was kind of a laid back thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know.
So yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily depend on the actual environment. It's all mindset.
Yeah.
It's all happening within you.
But the point that you just made in terms of COVID, and maybe it helped, maybe it hurt. I think it blurred. I think COVID, with so many people who took their, began to work from home, that blurred the lines.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that blurred the lines considerably. And so, even if you were already confused about where the line is, now you're really confused about where the line is.
Right, because there's no clock in, no clock out.
Right.
So it's really up to you then to set those boundaries.
Yeah.
And those boundaries are very personal.
Yeah.
Truly. I mean, if it depends on how much you enjoy what you're doing, which can be a whole nother topic that we might need to go down. But then also, your living situation. Are you with the family? Are you living with someone else? Is it just you? Because that's all going to change the way you view work.
Yeah. I can't get too far away from your conversation though before I've got to say that I don't get it because I really don't get the idea and what this person was saying was I just don't, when I'm off the clock, I'm off the clock. And I don't get that from a counseling perspective.
Well, that's what I started in the introduction is saying that like that's part of why I got into this line of work because it's pervasive. Like it's applicable to all. It enhances my entire life all the way around.
Right.
What I learn and what I teach in sessions are things that I can then bring home to my family,
right?
Whether that's just me or me and the dog or me and you and the dog.
Now, now to be honest, I think we can all, go overboard with that sometimes.
Yes,
I mean, I think a new counselor, a new minister, a new anything. Yeah. Fill in the blank.
Yeah, you're in that honeymoon period of enamorment.
You can maybe, you're searching for that place where that balance, so that you don't begin to see, when you introduce a topic, you don't begin to see eyes roll, and you can hear
there she goes
kind of
therapizing me again.
I'm being therapized again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that can not just happen in immediate family, but even in extended family.
Oh yeah. Sure.
And
don't talk to me like your client, like you're a therapist.
Right. Yeah. And you do your best to be conscious of I don't want to do that.
Right.
But then, again, from the family member's point of view, it's like, okay, well, could a little projection sometimes be going on?
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
maybe so. Yeah. But again, I think, you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, and it's about deciding, okay, in terms of work-life balance, right? You certainly don't want to take the stressors home, right?
Yeah.
And so it's about learning to bracket those things.
Now, when you say bracket, let's talk about what you mean. Because, see, I think this has application for anybody listening to us that goes to work and spends 40 hours, 50 hours, 60, whatever they spend at work and comes home and many times has things that they, do at home, for work.
Right. Yeah.
So bracket, what exactly do you mean by what is that and how can I use that as a strategy? So just like you use a bracket in phrasing, right? You've got the little brackets that you put around a sentence. Yep. And it sets it apart. Yeah. Right? It's almost like a little open box. Yeah. 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 And so I'm going to box this in. I'm going to box this in. Yeah. And that's the idea is you take whatever it is. Okay. Is this something that I need to take home with me and that I can feasibly, solve, or is this just going to stress me out? Right. Yeah. And it's something that I can solve later at work. Yeah. Right. If that's yes, you need to bracket it. Yeah. And what you do is you mentally put it in those brackets and you say, okay, I'm coming back to it when I get to work. Or if you're just so worried that you're going to lose it, write it down on your planner or in your phone so that it'll remind you to look at it again later. My partner in let it go. My partner in the radio business, Billy, we started, the two of us and three other guys started KVKI here in town back in the 80s.
Right.
And Billy and his wife, Jean, lived, they lived, he had a, not quite an hour drive. He lived in Keachai. But he had a drive every day, to and fro. And I remember him telling me that he used that drive.
Yep, that's great.
And he said, I listened to the radio a little bit, and,
Right.
But he said, I actually try to, as I'm driving, he said, I try to go over the day. And he said, my goal is, he said, I don't always succeed, but my goal is by the time I'm driving up to the house, I've worked it over in my mind and it's done.
Right.
And I leave it in the car for the most part. I try to leave it in the car.
Right.
The next morning, I know I've got about an hour, give or take a bit, to get back into town. And so I pick it back up.
Yeah.
I've always remembered that.
That's great.
And I think that is an excellent way to illustrate. I think he was bracketing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think there's just one way to
No.
bracket, but I think that demonstrates a realistic way.
So
to
in
bracket.
other words, allow yourself a certain length of time to mull it over.
Yeah,
but
we don't.
then,
We don't all around here. We don't all have hour commutes, right?
Right.
That's more uncommon than it is common. Maybe not so in bigger cities. But we could do the same thing. I mean, sometimes you did it today. You drove up from the office. I was already at home.
Right.
But you spent a little time in the car before you came in.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was still mulling over, and I'm not going to bring it into the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think there are some real healthy things we can do. And it's not a one size fits all. It's not like, okay, well, you have to do it this way.
No.
But you figure out your way to bracket. That's one strategy. We're talking about, what do you do for a living? Do you live to work, or do you work to live? We'll talk about that and more. What are we really creating in this thing that we call life? What is this life really about? We're tackling all of that today here on Strategies. We'll be right back. Hey, let's talk about the Robinson Film Center, 617 Texas Street, downtown Shreveport. How many times do I say there is no place like Robinson Film Center?
You don't say it enough.
Well, no, I probably don't. And there is no place like the Robinson Film Center. I mean, where do you go to see current movies that you're not going to see anyplace else? Well, Robinson Film Center. Find out what's showing at robinsonfilmcenter.org. And then you've got Abby Singer's Bistro, right? Full-service bistro and bar, second floor of the Robinson.
That's what I can't get enough of.
Oh, man. So, here's what you want to do. You want to join the crowd, join the fun, become a member. You get discounts on movies, you get concession upgrades, you get bistro deals. RFC, 617 Texas Street, downtown Shreveport. RobinsonFilmCenter.org.
Reading begins not in the classroom, but in your child's brain. I'm Donisa Walker with LearningRx Shreveport. If your child struggles to read, maybe he or she has trouble focusing or comprehending, LearningRx Shreveport offers a science solution to reading problems, working one-on-one with your child, targeting his or her reading skills. Today, call LearningRx Shreveport. Make an appointment to have your child assessed. I know you want to help your child, so does LearningRx Shreveport.
Hey now, welcome back. Welcome back into 101.7 FM, 710 Keel. Welcome back into Strategies for Living. Lauren Leon McMillan, David McMillan. What do you do for a living? What do any of us do for a living?
Why do we have to do for a living, by the way?
Okay, that's a great question. And that's that's such a what do you do? What do you do? What do you do?
And we let that,
here's what I do.
We let that define each other.
Yes. Yes. Welcome back into Strategies for Living, folks. We're talking about, this work life. I guess what do you do for a living? The work-life balance, all of that. Because work is important to us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ideally, what work does for us is give us purpose and meaning.
Well, yeah, you hope that, but it doesn't for everybody.
Right.
I mean, I think I count myself as
Yeah.
one of the luckiest people, most blessed people, however you want to say this. Because for 17 years, I was in the radio business, and I loved that. I loved it,
Right.
Obviously, in some way, I figured out a way to stay in it after.
Right.
The good Lord, put in front of me.
Well, and you believed you were worth it.
And I responded to it. Yeah, if the good Lord put in front of me a different path, and I responded to it. And man, I was, after I did, I was so happy, blessed, because I felt home. It felt like, okay, for 30 years practicing counseling, I knew I was home. I knew I was doing what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And not that I've stopped doing, I'm not practicing as a licensed counselor anymore, but I'm a life coach and I
Right.
still work with people. Thankfully, not to the degree that I did,
Yes.
because I was real busy. And, you know this, you saw this in my life. When I stopped, I didn't realize until after I stopped that,
He was crispy.
but I loved what I did.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. But I still was not. I mean,
And you can still get out of balance with that, right?
I was.
Yeah,
I was
that's
out of
it.
balance with it. There's no question about it. So, and again, and I'm sharing that just to be honest and to say, even when you love something, and maybe especially when you love something, love what you do, you can lose sight. You can lose sight of you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and it can become, anything can become quote unquote mundane.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
you begin to take it for granted. I'm just going and doing the same thing over and over again. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important then to come back. There's a couple things. One thing is to come back to your why. Why
am I doing?
Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
What am I
does
getting
this?
out of
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
Why did I get it in the beginning? Perhaps I've changed, and maybe it's not lighting my fire anymore.
Yeah.
What do I want to do about that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's so funny within occupations that's very, very different. If somebody, I don't know, plays the organ in a church, right? One person who's the organist in the church could have done it because they're in love with the church, the liturgy,
the church,
or whatever,
the
service.
liturgical music, all of that.
Yeah, right. And a vastly different person could be the organist because they love music and the environment that it creates.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so your why is very personal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's way less about what you do
Yeah.
and more about how you are doing it.
You're doing it. Yeah.
How?
See, you're mentioning church organists. See, I can imagine that very easily happening with ministers, priests, rabbis, imams,
Yeah.
where they love they're drawn into the spirituality. They're drawn, but then you have an uncle that's a priest. He works hard.
Right.
He's day by day after day after day.
Yep.
He has to do a certain amount of. It's expected.
Yeah.
This liturgy, then that liturgy.
And for
then-
every job,
Yeah.
there's going to be pieces that we don't love doing
Yeah.
about the job,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I mean, that's just part of jobs and
And,
life.
I'm not saying that your uncle doesn't love everything about the job.
Right.
I'm just saying he works hard, and I
Yeah.
can see how people
Well-
easily can get out of balance. Especially in drawn into professions that we can love. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but then there's the other side of the coin, right? There's the other side of the coin and people who work in what okay, I don't necessarily love working at.
So this is we're talking now more about the work to live people versus the
that's
living
right.
to work.
So I don't necessarily like working at Acme, warehouse and factory,
right.
But I make good money here assembling widgets, right?
Right.
And,
And
I'm
it
going to.
provides a good life for my family
Right.
and, XYZ.
So, and that is a lot of people that are, I think a lot of people fall into that category. I think you and I are blessed.
Yes. Yeah, we are.
In that we found professions that we absolutely, that
Lights the soul.
lights our soul up. But that's not everybody. So when that's not you, what do you do? How do we go about even beginning to balance, if you will? Yeah.
Well, my first inclination is then to be focusing on the how.
Okay.
Not just what you're doing,
and
not what you're doing,
yeah.
but how you're doing it.
Okay.
Anything you do, you can bring fun, you can bring play, you can bring enjoyment into it. You just have to be a little creative.
Yeah.
Right? If you're on an assembly line and you're allowed to have headphones, right?
Yeah.
Bring your music in.
Yeah.
Bring it, have your book on tape if it doesn't require a lot of brain power, right?
Yeah.
Find pieces of the job that do enhance your life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that could be people, or that could be moments or events or situations. And I truly believe that each present moment gifts us with something if we're willing to look.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's just about really coming into the present. And that means coming into your body, looking around and saying, what can I learn from what's going around me?
So what you're really saying then is being tuned in, to be really mindful of, this is who I am. And this, I'm reminded of that. I think it's a Buddhist saying, the day before enlightenment, you chop wood and carry water. The day after enlightenment, you chop wood and carry water.
Right.
In other words,
we're still physical beings with physical needs.
We have to provide for our needs and the needs of those others that might be relying upon us.
Right.
And so, but that might be different. It might feel different. Chopping wood and carrying water
could be a chore.
Might be a chore, but it might feel different after, quote unquote,
enlightenment,
an enlightened experience.
Yeah.
And does that even lighten the load
yes.
of having to, quote unquote, do whatever I do for a living?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It can, and it does.
Yeah.
Because you begin to see the lessons in everything. Just for instance, I enjoy crocheting, right?
Right.
And even in that, I can find life lessons, right?
Yep.
Like I realized that crocheting is just a bunch of loops of a single yarn, right?
Yeah.
And so how often is that what we do?
Yeah.
We just get looped up in
we're
each
looping.
other, right?
Yeah.
Yep. But in the end, if
chopping wood and carrying water,
if you're patient, right, and if you continue on, it makes a beautiful piece.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Okay, and it's just little things like that. If you can find the applications, the grander applications to life in little things in your work like that.
I got to brag on you for a minute here because with your crocheting, one of your aunts had possession of a beautiful, a beautiful. What would you call it?
It's an Afghan is what you call it. It's a blanket that
was done by your grandmother.
My great grandmother.
Your great grandmother.
Yes.
Who,
by hand, yeah.
Yeah, by hand. Everything by hand.
Right.
And through the years there was some wear that needed to be repaired. And the outcome was beautiful. You matched it perfectly. I mean, I know you haven't shown it to your aunt yet. I hope she's not listening. And,
I'm excited to show it to her, though. Yeah.
But she's gonna be so fired up when she sees.
Well, and it was so special too to be able to hold, the work that my great grandmother did, have it in the house, but then also to be able to add to it, to contribute to it, and how applicable, again, we're finding the life lessons within everything, right?
Right.
How true to life is that?
Yeah.
My great grandmother started a blanket, right?
Yeah.
Which over the years developed a hole.
Yep.
And I've come along, and what I did literally, right, was try to keep as much of the original string as I could, which I was pretty impressed that I was able to keep as much as I did.
Yeah, it looks wonderful.
Okay, right? But I came
Unless
along.
you point out where the repair is now, you don't know where that hole was. And it was quite a hole.
Right.
Yeah.
So I kept as much as I could because I did like what she had done, right?
Yep.
See where the life lesson is coming in?
Yep.
And I attached my yarn and added to the piece, and I completed it in the way,
Yeah.
in a beautiful way, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was cool to be a part of that.
Absolutely.
So
And now that Afghan, which has been around, I don't know, 60, 70 years, whatever it is,
I don't know. I don't know when she made it.
now may be around another 60 or 70 years or more,
Perhaps so.
and enjoyed.
Yeah. Hopefully passed along.
Hopefully. I mean, even the little time that we've had stewardship of it,
Right.
I've enjoyed seeing it and it being here.
Yeah, I have too.
Yeah,
So.
and it's special. And so you can find things like that, even in the mundane,
Especially.
maybe in the mundane. What do you do for a living? That's the question that we are considering this evening here on Strategies for Living. Are you working just for the money? Or all out of obligation? Or, and if you are, that's okay.
As long as you're aware.
As long as you're aware
And
of
that's
it.
okay with you.
We're talking about all of that and more here on Strategies for Living. Stay right where you are. We'll be right back. You're going to see the difference. When you go to Azalea Cleaners, you'll hear about it too. Azalea Cleaners has been fine dry cleaning since 1958, plus laundry, alterations and repairs, comforters, wedding gown cleaning and restoration. You'll hear about it from your friends because they'll see it too. They'll notice the Azalea difference. Azalea is convenient. 732 Azalea Drive, 9220 Ellerby Road, and 9227 Mansfield Road. Plus, the front door of your home or business with Azalea's delivery on demand. Just text SETUP to 249-8283, and Azalea will pick up your clothes and deliver them back clean and fresh to you. You can't get closer than that. That's the Azalea difference. You'll notice it right away. Others will too. The Azalea difference. Fine dry cleaning since 1958. Text SETUP to 249-8283 and get the Azalea difference. AzaleaCleaners.com. And welcome back into Strategies for Living here on 101.7 FM, 710 Keel. Lauren Leon McMillan, David McMillan. Yeah, this is our work, but we love it. Some days more than others. I got to be honest.
Yep.
Yep.
Depends on the energy level, but
It does. And, and again, I think, we're blessed because I can come in to do a program with you and folks for you, and I can be tired. I can really be tired. And I find at the end of doing the program, I've got more energy.
right.
That's a sign. That's a sign that you need to thank the good Lord, thank whoever you think,
And
in
do
your
more
life.
of that as you can.
Right.
I mean, I think that's a great strategy in and of itself, is to be aware of quote unquote energy drainers, right? And energy builders.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
And as much as you can, within reason, try to eliminate the energy drainers and
build up
the
energy.
energy builders.
Right.
Now, of course, there are some energy drainers that are necessary to get to the energy builders, right?
Yeah.
And so
I want to. We mentioned bracketing earlier
Yes.
as a strategy. I want to talk some more strategies about this. What do you do for a living? How do we do this work-life balance? And bracketing is, a good way to do that. What we're really talking about with boundaries is setting boundaries.
with brackets,
is setting boundaries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So establishing real clear boundaries between your personal life and your work life, and defining,
Well-
even if you, like Tommy and Mickey, you live over the store, okay, well, even as kids, they had some duties, right?
Sure.
But I hung around a lot, so I could see during their duty time, they had to work. But then, even though the location didn't change, we went out and played when it was. So there was a balance there.
Yeah.
There was a balance. So setting those boundaries and separating work-related tasks from personal activities, I think, is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think having a sense of time, being able to efficiently organize and prioritize the task that you have and allocating enough time. So it's a time management thing, both to get your work done and to get your needs met at home. And, you're not only getting your needs met, but you're also, if you've got husband, wife, kids, other people in your family that you're responsible toward, you've got to take that into consideration, I think.
Yeah. And speaking of which, I ran across an interesting concept that I think would apply here. And it's based on the idea that, and I've talked to people about this often, and it's when, you do for others, you do your work, and then you come home and you do for your family.
Right.
And you end up staying up very late because you never had time for yourself. Right?
Right.
And so I ran across this concept. It's called Save the Day. Okay. And so what you do is at the end of the day, you schedule, a certain amount of time, whether that's 30 minutes, an hour, 15 minutes, whatever you can manage.
Right.
And use that time to quote unquote save the day and do something for you that you love.
Okay.
That energy builds.
I like that.
So that, and block that in so that then you can still get to bed at a decent time, right?
But you've
scheduled it.
You've scheduled that into your day. Okay. I think that's a great illustration of, again, managing your time. Another thing I think we have to manage, and we've got to be realistic about this, is stress. Some jobs, some professions are more stressful than others.
Absolutely.
And so you've got to implement some strategies to manage the stress in your life, the stress levels. And so what are some ways we can do that? Well, we can practice mindfulness or meditation or breath work or centering prayer.
Exercise,
yes. That's
journaling.
Regular physical exercise, journaling. But then I think scheduling times that you totally unplug, and even if you've got them scheduled months in advance, in October, we're going to go up to Arkansas and we're going to go up far enough to see the leaves different from the way they look here. Right?
Yes.
And that's months away, but we're going to schedule that. So that's something we look forward to.
The old dangling carrot, right?
Yeah. And that's unplugging, and doing that on a regular basis, I think is good stress management.
Yeah, and balancing those sort of things, the dangling carrot, looking forward to activities, with reminding yourself of the magic in the present moment.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
it's a balance between those things, because you don't want to have a dangling carrot that's you're already in the mountains when you need to be working.
Right.
Right.
Right. We often talk on the program about, two processes that are important to life.
Yes.
Adaptation,
And
adaptive process, and integrative process.
Right.
And I think both of them both have to do with a sense of being flexible, having the ability to adjust and adapt. Mm-hmm. Now some of us have better, more control of our schedule than other people.
Oh, yeah.
But you find ways to adapt and adjust within whatever container you're working within.
Right. And I was going to say, just like literal muscle flexibility, it is something that you stretch and that you flex,
Yeah,
right? And that
yeah.
you learn over time.
Yeah.
And there's different ways to go about that.
Yeah.
For me, a good easy way to practice flexibility is with gratitude.
Yeah.
Recognizing and being grateful for whatever comes your way.
Real quickly, to flip this on its side,
Okay.
And this still has to do with strategies, but how do I know if I'm out of balance? Well, if I'm just if I'm constantly feel,
if it feels like Groundhog Day to you, I think that's a big big flag.
If I'm neglecting my personal life, if I'm sacrificing my personal relationships or the relationship with myself, my hobbies, my leisure activities, due to excessive work demands, I'm out of balance. Burnout, and just fried.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Not enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's the Groundhog Day syndrome, right? It's
absolutely
just the same old mundane.
And just I'm not I know that I'm not taking care of myself. I know that I'm not taking care of the basics. We all know them. Sleep, good sleep, exercise,
Food.
leisure time,
Eat,
deteriorating.
Sleep, social.
Yeah, there you go. What do you do? What do you do for a living? Hope we've given some strategies today. That's what we're all about here.
Yeah.
On Strategies for Living. We'll be back just a moment.
Hi, this is Jay Merle for Pintail Roofing. Let's talk about quality. When you hire Pintail to build your roof, here's what you can expect. Quality and quality control are the most important concerns for us at Pintail, and you need to know that Pintail stands tall with swift and professional performance on any warranty call. This is our most important policy. And remember, we're your neighbors. We'll be here for you for the long haul. Our family's lived here for over 100 years, and we aren't going anywhere. On the commercial side of Pintail's business, our fluid-applied roofing solutions can save thousands of dollars over conventional commercial roofing options. Call Pintail at 226-ROOF for a free inspection of your home or commercial building. That's 226-7663. Pintail Roofing. What's the condition of your roof?
And welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living here on 101.7 FM and 710 Keel. You're over there chuckling. Lauren Leon McMillan, David McMillan, you're over there chuckling. What are you chuckling
help it.
about?
It's another one of those life lessons in the present moment things, right?
Yeah.
You were over there humming along, right?
Yeah.
DoBeDoBeDo.
I do that.
And I thought to myself, that's it. That is a great life strategy.
Yeah.
And hear me out, exactly for this program it is, okay?
Yeah.
Because what is a work-life balance but DoBeDoBeDo?
DoBeDoBeDo.
It's the
There
balance.
You go. We have it.
It is the balance between doing and being. It's the
love
balance
it.
between being and doing. And I would remind people that in all of your doing, to remember that it is your being which sponsors all of your doing. Mm-hmm. And, when all else fails, remember, DoBeDoBeDo.
DoBeDoBeDo.
Right? We're not do-do-do-do-do. We don't want to be do-do.
No,
right?
no. Or BB.
Right.
Yeah. BBs are too small. Yeah.
Okay.
And they sting.
Right.
Yeah.
So be like Scooby. Scooby-Dooby-Dooby-Doo.
DoBeDoBeDo. This,
Or the Rat Pack.
That's
Whatever one you like.
That's a good way to remember it. So, this is important stuff. What do you do for a living? And, how's your work-life balance? And, if you find yourself, if you're at a point where you've asked yourself the questions along with us and you're out of balance, you don't have to do anything extreme, but just begin.
Right.
Make a start. And maybe some of the strategies we talked about today will be helpful to you. I hope so. Because,
That's why we do it.
one of the reasons that we do strategies for living here every day. And folks, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us here on Strategies for Living. And we appreciate our sponsors making it possible. The Robinson Film Center and Azalea Cleaners and Pintail Roofing and Learning RX and Hempress Cannabis with Love and the Shreveport Little Theater. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call that you could make, who would you call? And what would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For Lauren Leon McMillan, I'm David McMillan. See you next time, right here on Strategies for Living.